Arin Voss had been on HFY for 23 days, long enough to accept 3 uncomfortable truths. The nutrient printer hated him, the planet's auroras behaved like sentient curtains of fire, and thinking too intensely near Liora was a tactical mistake. The harmonic field stretched beyond the outpost in shimmering waves, crystal-laced flora that vibrated with soft resonance whenever wind passed through them. Not music, not language, but something unsettlingly close to both. Arin was here as a terrabiologist. Liora, an Aetherian harmonic scholar, worked beside him with senses that weren't technological but biological. She stood perfectly still and let the fields speak, her skin threaded with shifting bioluminescent strands. Aetherians didn't express emotion with their faces. Their entire bodies carried truth in light and motion. Right now, inside the research lab, Liora reached for a vial on a high shelf. Arin's attention followed instinctively. Not her body, he insisted, but the way her luminweave brightened in precise neural synchronicity. Teal for concentration, amber for calm. No human nervous system could display its thoughts so openly. He'd spent nights sketching diagrams of Aetherian musculature, trying to map how they bent without the rigid joint limitations humans had. Their bones were reinforced lattices, flexible, semi-elastic structures that adapted to stress rather than resisted it. Watching Liora move was like observing physics rewritten. He was so lost in analysis he didn't notice she'd turned until her luminweave shifted to a hue he'd never seen, rose-violet curiosity. "Arin," she said softly, voice carrying the faint harmonic undertones Aetherians possessed. "You are observing me again." He froze, his thoughts collapsed into a static hiss. "I know, I mean yes, but not in the way it looks." Silvery flickers rippled across her luminweave, amusement. "How does it look?" she asked. Arin swallowed. "I was studying how your skeletal fibers distribute pressure, and how your luminweave responds to neural signals. It's fascinating." I got carried away. Her translucent ears angled toward him, Aetherian focus. Humans find physical observation uncomfortable. "Only when it implies attraction," Arin said, cringing as the words left him. "Which makes things awkward." Her light shifted to contemplative violet. Aetherians do not divide body and mind. Form is expression. To observe the body is to listen. "So you're not offended?" "I am curious." Warm amber pulsed along her arms. "Tell me what you see." Arin exhaled shakily, retreating into science because it was safer than emotion. "Efficiency," he said. "Elegance born from low-gravity evolution. Your bone lattice adapts under strain instead of resisting. Your musculature distributes effort constantly. And the luminweave, it's a real-time interface with your nervous system, functionally brilliant, a living system of signal and response." Liora stepped closer, light shifting in complex harmonics. "You see me as structure." "And purpose," Arin added quietly. "Every movement you make has intention." She considered this. Humans move differently, heavier. But when you choose to act, you commit fully. There is beauty in that certainty. Arin felt the words land deeper than he wanted to admit. Humans aren't known for grace. "Grace is irrelevant," she replied. "Meaning is not." Outside the window, dusk washed the fields in molten color, turning the crystal flora into rippling rivers of orange and gold. Liora watched them for a moment before saying, "If you wish to understand Aetherian form, I will teach you. In exchange, you will teach me how humans interpret the body." "That sounds like a long conversation," Arin said. Her luminweave shimmered silver, playful. "Then it is fortunate we have time." And as the twilight deepened, Arin realized that understanding her meant understanding an entire way of being, one that scared and fascinated him in equal measure. The next morning, HFY greeted them with its usual strangeness. Auroras drifting like slow celestial rivers, and fields humming with faint, crystalline resonance. Arin adjusted his pack as he and Liora began the 4-hour trek toward the northern spirals, clusters of towering crystal flora believed to hold the strongest harmonic signatures on the planet. Liora moved with quiet precision, her steps soft as though she weighed nothing at all. Arin, by contrast, crunched through the mineral soil with a sound like breaking glass. She noticed immediately. Her luminweave shifted to pale silver amusement. "Your locomotion is emphatic," she said. "That's a polite way to say humans stomp. It is a precise way to say humans declare presence." Her ears angled forward. "Aetherians flow, you announce." Arin tried not to trip on a crystal root, which only proved her point. "We evolved on a world full of predators. Heavy footsteps warn the things smaller than us, and make the things bigger than us reconsider. Survival strategy through sound, Liora murmured. Interesting. They continued in silence until the fields brightened ahead, the flora glowing brighter in Liora's presence. Arin had noticed it before but never addressed it. They react to you, he said. Why? She slowed, letting a cluster of spiral-stalked growths brush against her palm. Her luminweave brightened in response, the colors shifting in elegant spirals of deep blue and warm gold. The fields resonate with electromagnetic patterns. My luminweave emits frequencies similar to their growth harmonics. They do not understand me exactly, but they respond. Like a call and response. Like recognition, she corrected softly. Arin watched, mesmerized. Show me. Liora stepped into a clearing and raised her arm. Her luminweave intensified, shifting through a deliberate sequence. Calm blue, attentive green, warm gold. The surrounding flora answered, not with sound, but with the sudden bloom of light, their internal crystals brightening in layered cascades. It was breathtaking. This is our introduction sequence, she explained. Aetherians use it when meeting new individuals. It displays emotional range and intent. So that's your version of a first impression. Yes, humans use posture, facial expressions, tone. We use luminweave. She paused. Your species hides much. Ours shows everything. Humans don't hide, Arin protested. We just compartmentalize, which is a more elegant word for hiding. The corners of her lips lifted infinitesimally, her rare approximation of a smile. You conceal to protect. Aetherians reveal to connect. Arin wasn't sure if that made humans cautious or simply afraid. They gathered samples for an hour before Liora broke the silence again. You said yesterday that symmetry appeals to humans. Why? Evolution, symmetry signals genetic stability. It's not conscious, it's instinct. He paused. But humans also like things that aren't symmetrical, art, design, motion. Contradictory. Entirely. Liora considered this. Aetherian aesthetics value change, not balance. Luminweave is naturally asymmetrical. If it becomes too perfect, something is wrong. Stability for us is stagnation. That makes sense, Arin said. Your whole form is about motion, expression. Exactly, which is why staring at an Aetherian is not inappropriate. It is listening. When you watched me in the lab, I felt observed, not threatened. Arin rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. Humans aren't used to being that transparent. Perhaps that is why you find each other difficult to understand, she said gently. They continued deeper into the spirals. The air grew cooler. The light shifted into violet hues refracted from crystalline surfaces. Liora paused beside a tree-like structure whose trunk resonated with faint luminescent pulses. Arin, she said, observe this. She placed both hands on the trunk. Her luminweave responded instantly, matching the crystal's rhythm. Arin stepped closer, captivated. Even the air seemed to vibrate. It's communicating with you, he whispered. Not communicating. Resonating, her voice lowered. There is a difference. Communication conveys intention. Resonance conveys alignment. Arin felt something shift inside him, an understanding he'd been approaching without realizing. You're not just reading the world reads you back. Liora's luminweave flickered in affirmation. They worked in the spirals for hours, testing frequencies and recording shifts. At one point, Arin became so absorbed in scanning the oscillation patterns that he forgot to monitor the device. His gaze wandered again, toward Liora, the way her light mapped emotion, the way her movements fit seamlessly into the environment. She noticed. Arin, she said softly, you are observing me again. He blinked, caught. Sorry, I got distracted. Do not apologize, I am curious. What were you thinking? He hesitated, then decided honesty was safer than deflection. I was thinking how integrated you are. With motion, with space, with everything around you. Humans don't move like that. Because you were not meant to, she said. Humans move with weight, intention. Aetherians move with possibility. Neither is superior, both are truth. She sat beside him on a low crystalline outcrop. Her luminweave dimmed to soft lavender comfort he'd learned. Arin Voss, she said, you see my form without wishing to claim it. That is rare. Most observation is ownership in disguise. He felt the weight of that. I don't want to own anything, I just want to understand. That, she whispered, is why I teach you. The fields around them hummed as if agreeing. They shared a ration break, Arin chewing reluctantly through Arin woke to a harsh, metallic wail that did not belong to HFY peaceful mornings. The outpost lights flickered crimson, and the station AI announced in a voice far too calm for the message it carried. Seismic instability detected. Structural integrity compromised. Evacuation recommended. He threw on his field jacket and ran to the command center. Liora was already there, her luminweave cycling through rapid sequences he'd never seen, piercing yellows, sharp reds, frantic pulses of violet. Not fear, he realized, but intense processing. "What's happening?" Arin asked. "The harmonic fields are destabilizing," she said, her fingers gliding over holographic readouts. "The seismic triggers align with the largest spiral formations. They are not being destroyed by the quakes. They are creating them." "How?" "Rapid subsurface growth. Their root systems are expanding at a rate that fractures the crust." Arin stared at the geological overlay. The epicenters matched perfectly with their botanical survey sites. The planet's entering a growth phase, a bad one. Another tremor hit, strong enough that tools rattled off shelves. Liora bent gracefully, maintaining balance while Arin braced himself against the wall. "We have to launch the pod," he said. "Now." They sprinted through the outpost as floor panels vibrated under their feet. Storage racks collapsed. Crystallized samples shattered like glass rain. The air hummed with a rising, resonant frequency, the fields reacting violently to the planet's shift. In the emergency bay, the pod waited, a cramped cylinder built for two humans, not a human and a flexible-limbed Aetherian who required space to mediate sensory input. Liora hesitated at the threshold. Her luminweave flickered anxious gray. "Arin, Aetherians do not tolerate prolonged proximity well." "I know," he said, "but dying is worse." A tremor nearly knocked them off their feet. They climbed in. The hatch sealed. Explosive bolts fired, launching them into the sky just as the outpost collapsed into the rupturing ground. Arin pressed his forehead to the viewport. The place he'd lived for months was swallowed whole in seconds. "I downloaded the data," he said numbly. "Everything we recorded is safe." "That is what matters," Liora replied, though her voice trembled. The pod entered its long, predetermined trajectory toward the nearest rescue station, a journey of 6 days in a space barely larger than a closet. The reality settled on them like a physical weight. Liora curled her legs beneath her in a position that looked impossible for any vertebrate. Her luminweave dimmed almost completely. "How bad is this for you?" Arin asked quietly. "The proximity is overwhelming," she admitted. "Aetherians require intervals of non-observation, silence in light, space to dim." Arin thought quickly. The pod had one privacy partition, barely large enough for a human to stand behind. But it was something. "Okay," he said. "We take 4-hour shifts. When you're behind the partition, I won't look, I won't acknowledge you, you'll have space." Her luminweave flickered with a faint pulse of hopeful blue. "You would do that?" "Of course," he said. "We're in this together." The arrangement worked, mostly. During shared hours, they reviewed data and tried to distract themselves with conversation. During private hours, Arin stared at the empty viewport pretending he was alone, while Liora let her luminweave dim and stabilize. But by the second day, she looked strained. Her luminweave had dulled to muted gray, exhaustion, sensory overload, emotional compression. On the third day, it nearly went dark. Arin reacted instantly. "Liora, hey, talk to me." "What's happening?" "My biology is compensating," she said weakly. "When overstimulated, Aetherians shut down non-essential functions. It is a protective response. I cannot endure 3 more days like this." Arin's mind raced. "Close your eyes." "Arin, please trust me." She obeyed. He moved to the pod's environmental controls and began altering everything he could. Airflow, temperature gradients, ambient lighting. Soft, drifting shadows replaced harsh illumination. He adjusted the oxygen mix to mimic thinner atmospheres. He cycled a low-frequency hum to simulate the tonal emptiness she'd described in Aetherian meditation chambers. "Okay," he whispered, "open your eyes." She did slowly. Her luminweave shifted from collapsing gray to soft, surprised blue. "You tried to replicate sensory solitude," she murmured, "a perception of space." "I tried to give you room to breathe," Arin said, "even if it isn't real space." "It is enough," she whispered. The next day, something changed between them. Maybe it was the proximity, maybe it was shared survival. Maybe it was that Liora, usually so composed, finally let her guard drop. During one of their shared hours, Arin asked, "Liora, do Aetherians feel attraction, like humans do?" She considered, luminweave shifting to contemplative violet. "Not in separate forms. Connection is singular for us, emotional, intellectual, physical. If we bond, it is whole." "That sounds intense." "It is why we are cautious." To bond with someone is to reshape one's internal rhythm. She hesitated, something rare for her. Arin, in these days with you, I feel a form of connection, not romantic as humans define it, something deeper, alignment. Arin felt heat rise to his face. I feel something too, not romance, just that you matter. Her luminweave warmed to soft gold understanding. Then, she said quietly, we have begun something neither species has a word for. The hum of the pod surrounded them. The universe was silent outside, but in the cramped metal shell a new resonance was forming, one that neither of them fully understood yet. But both felt. By the 5th day inside the evacuation pod, time had begun to blur. Sleep came in fragments, meals were mechanical routines, and every conversation felt suspended between survival and something far more intimate. Arin had grown accustomed to the hum of the environmental systems, the soft glow of Liora's luminweave, and the strange quiet that formed between them when words failed. But on the morning of the 5th day, quiet exploded. A sharp impact struck the pod, metal screamed, lights flickered, and the walls shuddered violently. Arin was thrown sideways, pain blooming white-hot through his leg as something cracked deep within bone. Arin. Liora's voice was sharper than he'd ever heard it. She reached him in one fluid motion, her luminweave erupting into emergency red. You are injured. He tried to sit up but nearly blacked out. I'm fine, he lied, teeth clenched. Just something hit us. A micrometeoroid shard, she said, scanning the wall where a small breach was already sealing over with the pod's autogel. The hull is contained, you are not. He laughed weakly. You're getting better at human dramatic phrasing. This is not a moment for humor, she snapped, then softened. Stay still. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she pulled the emergency kit from the wall panel. She applied a stabilizer frame to his leg, locking it in place while biogel hardened around the fracture. Arin hissed as pain radiated upward. Your vitals are rising dangerously, she warned. Pain does that, he muttered. Liora knelt beside him, her luminweave dimming to calmer hues. Arin, you must remain still. Any additional strain will worsen the damage. He nodded, exhaling shakily. How long until rescue? 30 hours. The words felt like a sentence, but he tried to hide his reaction. Liora's luminweave flickered anyway. She saw everything now, because the bond between them, whatever name it deserved, was no longer theoretical. The next hours were a haze of pain medication, drifting semi-consciousness, and Liora's constant presence. She barely left his side. When he stirred, she read his distress before he could speak. When he drifted off, she adjusted the pod's settings to keep him comfortable. At one point, he woke to find her sitting cross-legged near him, eyes half closed, luminweave moving in slow, soothing waves. You're meditating? He asked groggily. Yes, Aetherian patterns can induce calm in another being if aligned purposefully. Her tones softened. Humans often use spoken reassurance, we use light. And it's working, he whispered. It is meant to. Hours passed. Time blurred. When he woke again, Liora was speaking softly, almost chanting. Her luminweave projected gentle pulses onto the pod walls, transforming the cramped metal into something warmer, almost alive. Is that for me? He asked. For both of us, she replied. Your distress echoes through the bond, it affects me. He swallowed, sorry. Do not apologize, bonding is not a burden. It is shared existence. Her luminweave glowed warm pink, deep emotional resonance. Arin tried to shift his weight, winced, and stopped. Liora, I need to ask you something. Yes, when this is over, when we're rescued, will this bond fade? No, she said it gently without hesitation. It is permanent. Aetherian bonds imprint through emotional frequency. Once formed, they endure across distance, across time. That should have terrified him. Instead, it steadied him. What about you? He whispered, do you regret it, being connected to a human? Liora's luminweave shifted to gold threaded with soft lavender, affection and contemplation. Arin, you gave me space when I had none. You listened when humans often speak. You adjusted an entire environment to ease my distress. You see me not as spectacle or enigma, but as person. She paused. I do not regret connection with one who chooses understanding over assumption. He felt heat rise in his chest, not romantic heat, but something steadier, deeper. I'm glad you don't. Rest, she said softly. Your healing will accelerate if you stop resisting it. He closed his eyes. The pod's hum became distant. Liora's light swayed like a slow heartbeat. He drifted into a fog of pain and warmth, and when he surfaced again, her hand was resting lightly against his arm, Aetherian contact, rare and meaningful. "Is that allowed?" he murmured. "For bonded individuals," she said, tone quiet. "Contact can stabilize emotional flux. Does it stabilize yours too?" Her luminweave answered before she did, a warm gold ripple, soft and sincere. "Yes." The final hours were long but less frightening. Liora told him stories of Aetherian constellations, social groups bound by shared resonance, and the meditative caverns of her home world. She spoke of oceans filled with light-emitting organisms, and how Aetherian children learned pattern language by playing with its reflections at night. Arin told her about Earth sunsets, about coffee that didn't taste like tragedy, about his nephew who tried to teach him an impossible dance at a birthday party. Liora asked detailed questions about each human ritual, fascinated by emotions humans tried so hard to hide. They talked until Arin's voice grew faint. When the rescue craft finally docked, the pod shook with the familiar clang of magnetic anchors attaching. Voices muffled through metal. Light spilled in as the hatch opened. Arin felt Leora's hand slip away, but her luminweave glowed bright gold. Relief, gratitude, something deeper. "You saved me," she said softly. "We saved each other," he replied. Just before he lost consciousness again, drifting as medics lifted him out, he saw Liora watching him, her luminweave a blend of soft blue and gold, the Aetherian colors for connection and continuity. And he understood, whatever they had become. It wasn't ending here, it was beginning. Arin woke to clean air, steady lighting, and the unmistakable scent of an actual medical facility. Antiseptic, sterile, safe. For a moment he wondered if the pod had been a fevered dream born of pain and fear. But when he shifted and felt the rigid support around his leg, and the sharper memory of Leora's steadying presence, he knew it had all been real. A soft tone chimed as the door slid open. Liora stepped in, her movements silent as ever, her luminweave glowing in gentle shades of blue threaded with gold. Relief, continuity, connection. "You are conscious," she said, and though her voice remained even, something warm ran beneath it. "The medical staff predicted another day before you woke." "How long was I out?" "2 days." She approached his bedside. "Your leg required extensive repair. The break was more complex than the pod's diagnostics indicated." He blinked up at her. "And you?" "I am well," she answered, though her luminweave flickered with a brief pulse of silver, fatigue. "The rescue ship has proper meditation rooms. I have recovered my equilibrium." Arin let out a slow breath. Being separated from her had felt oddly abrupt. "I'm glad." Leora's ears tilted slightly. "You are in less pain now." "Yeah," he admitted. "The meds are stronger here, and the room doesn't rattle every 5 minutes." "An improvement," she said softly. A moment of quiet stretched between them, comfortable, not strained. Arin shifted, propping himself a little higher. "Liora, what happens now? The outpost is gone." "Our research, our work, was preserved," she said immediately. "Your quick thinking ensured that." He blinked. "Our quick thinking." Her luminweave warmed. "Yes." She stepped closer, folding her hands before her. "Arin, there is something I must tell you. A truth Aetherian protocol requires I disclose once a bond stabilizes." His heart kicked at the word bond. "Okay," he said, "tell me." Her luminweave shifted into deep violet with threads of anxious orange, rare colors he had seen only in the pod's worst hours. "When Aetherians form a connection of emotional resonance, our luminweave begins to synchronize with the bonded individual's emotional patterns. The more prominent the bond, the stronger the echoes." "Echoes." She extended her arm. Patterns shimmered along her skin in deliberate sequence. "These represent your emotional states over the last few minutes. Confusion, curiosity, concern. A moment of fear, a current of grounding." Arin's breath caught. "You're reading me." "Yes," she said softly. "Not perfectly, not deeply, but broadly and unavoidably. I sense your emotional rhythm. It influences mine." "And this won't fade." "No, the bond is permanent." For a long moment, Arin didn't speak. Permanent. A connection that transcended species, distance, biology. Finally, he asked, "Did I do something wrong? Did I trigger this without meaning to?" Leora's patterns flared warm pink, comforting, steady, grounding. "You did nothing wrong. Arin, Aetherian bonds do not form without mutual resonance. It began when you offered me space in the pod." when you changed the environmental settings, when you gave me understanding instead of panic. These actions reshaped your emotional frequency. She paused, and mine aligned to it. So you're stuck with me. Her luminweave flickered bright silver, laughter. If I did not want this bond, I would not be here. Arin let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Then, what does this mean for us? It means, she said gently, that we continue learning, continue aligning, continue existing in proximity without fracturing. Sounds difficult, he murmured. Most meaningful things are. A faint chime signaled the arrival of a medic who politely informed Liora her visitation period was nearing its limit. She nodded but lingered by Arin a moment longer. Arin Voss, she said quietly. You asked once if human Aetherian connections fade. They do not, and I do not wish ours to. He swallowed, I don't either. When she left, the room felt emptier in a way he hadn't expected. Not lonely, just missing a frequency he'd grown used to. A week later, Arin was transferred to an orbital research station around a nearby gas giant. The work was intentionally light, chosen to allow him time to heal. He assumed he'd be alone for a while, sorting through the aftermath of everything that had happened. He was wrong. When the station doors opened to reveal Liora standing there with a small data pad and a faint gold pulse of welcome, he didn't know whether to laugh or sigh in relief. You requested this assignment? He asked. I recommended it, she corrected, with emphasis. And they just approved that. The Xenobiology Committee found our collaborative work unusually effective. They believe continued partnership is logical. Arin raised a brow. Logical. Her luminweave flashed silver, and beneficial. Life settled into a rhythm. They worked during standard hours, analyzing growth cycles, interpreting resonance patterns, preparing reports on the harmonic field's planetary impact. But the evenings were theirs. Sometimes they sat in the observation deck, watching storms churn below them. Sometimes Liora taught Arin the nuances of luminweave language, how blue could mean calm or melancholy depending on pulse speed, how gold could be gratitude or invitation, how silver was layered with dozens of shades of humor. Other nights, Arin introduced her to human concepts. Music, cooking, the absurdity of idioms, the strange comfort of silence shared without fear. And beneath every interaction, the bond hummed, quiet but constant. One night 3 months after the rescue, Arin finally voiced the question lingering in his mind. Liora, are you happy with this, with us? Her luminweave rippled through a spectrum of warm tones, pink, gold, blue. Happiness is incomplete for what I feel. Contentment is closer. Alignment is closer still. What we have does not match human romance or Aetherian constellation bonds. She paused. We are something new. Arin exhaled softly. Nearly a year passed before Arin and Liora were cleared to return to HFY. The planet's violent growth phase had stabilized. New geological structures rose like crystal spires carved by light itself. The harmonic fields had transformed into something even stranger. Their resonance deeper, their colors richer, their patterns denser with meaning none of their previous data had prepared them for. As the shuttle descended through the upper atmosphere, Arin felt a tension he couldn't quite name. Anticipation, memory, something else, something that hummed faintly along the bond inside his chest. Beside him, Liora sat perfectly still, luminweave pulsing in soft patterns of blue and gold, serenity intertwined with cautious hope. It feels different, Arin whispered as the fields came into view. It is, Liora agreed. And so are we. The shuttle touched down on a temporary landing platform erected by the new research team. When the doors opened, a wave of humming resonance washed over them, the planet greeting them with its living frequencies. The sound vibrated in Arin's bones, familiar and yet new. Liora inhaled slowly, her luminweave brightening as if her entire body were exhaling into alignment. I hear it, she murmured. The fields remember. Arin wasn't sure if that was scientifically accurate or metaphorical. With Liora, it could be both. They spent the first few hours directing the team's setup, recalibrating instruments, updating resonance maps, collecting baseline samples. But the moment they walked into the valley where they had first worked side by side, before the quakes, before the pod, before the bond, something inside Arin tightened. The valley was both familiar and foreign. New crystalline formations spiraled upward like luminous sculptures. The air hummed in richer harmonics. And near the ridge, where they had once collected resonance samples, a cluster of crystal flora pulsed in soft waves of blue and gold. Liora noticed it at the same moment he did. They're matching your colors, Arin said quietly. No, she corrected gently. They are matching ours. The words settled deeply. The flora weren't mirroring her luminweave. They were mirroring the blended tones the two of them often produced when emotionally aligned. Arin swallowed. Liora, does this mean the fields can sense the bond? The fields sense resonance, she replied, and we are resonant. For once, her certainty didn't intimidate him. It anchored him. They worked long into the afternoon, cataloging changes in harmonic frequency while the twin suns dipped toward the horizon. When the sky shifted into evening violet, Liora finally spoke again. Arin Voss, she said softly, I brought you something. He turned as she reached into her field pack and withdrew a small, polished crystal node. Inside its translucent surface, threads of light shifted in familiar patterns, pink, blue, gold, silver, cycling gently. These are recordings, she said. My luminweave sequences from the time of our bond's formation. So you may remember how I felt, all of it, even the parts I did not express aloud. Arin took the crystal carefully, feeling a weight that wasn't physical. You recorded this for me. For us, she corrected. He hesitated, then reached into his own pack and retrieved a small container. Inside, a preserved segment of harmonic flora glowed faintly. I found this near the old spirals, he said. It resonated when I approached. I thought maybe it belonged with you. Liora's luminweave shifted to a deeply warm pink, rare, vulnerable. Thank you. They stood together as twilight deepened. The fields hummed their evening harmony, a soft, layered chorus that made the air feel alive. Wind traced luminescent paths through the crystal formations. Twin moons rose above the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley. Liora, Arin said after a long, quiet moment, what do Aetherians call a bond like ours? Not romantic, not constellation, something else. There is no single word, she said. It is too rare. Her luminweave brightened, slow and steady. But there is a phrase, Vaithalan. It means those whose frequencies remain aligned, even at distance. Arin exhaled, and that's what we are. Her eyes met his, yes. The bond hummed softly, like a second heartbeat. He realized suddenly that he didn't need a name. The feeling was enough. They stayed until the stars fully emerged. The fields glowed beneath them, moving in gentle waves as if welcoming two beings who no longer belonged solely to their own species. Two beings whose bond had survived pressure, fear, silence, fracture, and time. When they finally began the walk back to the research platform, Liora spoke again. Arin, in Aetherian culture, returning to the place where a bond began is significant. How significant? He asked carefully. It means we choose to continue, not because obligation demands it, because alignment persists. He smiled, small, sincere. Then I choose it too. Liora's luminweave bloomed into warm gold at his words. Acceptance, connection, forward motion. Above them, the stars shimmered. Below them, the planet hummed. Between them, a resonance neither species had a name for guided their steps. Whatever came next, research, discovery, distance,